Hello and good morning, everybody. What is up and welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Liz and I'm your host here on Creating Crime Time, where I sit down and I talk about some true crime. Now, today we are headed back to Texas. We're going to Childress, Texas. Now, some people probably have already heard of this case. We are going to be talking about the deaths of Tate Rowland and Terrie Trosper. So, these are two siblings from Childress, Texas, and their deaths occurred in 1988 and 1991. And respectively, so one was ruled as a suicide and one is an accident. These were one of several cases that are attributed to the Satanic Panic era that happened in the United States. Yes. So, on the evening of July 26th of 1988, the body of 17-year-old Tate Rowland was discovered hanging from an apple tree on a dirt road outside of Childress. He was discovered by his friend Chad Johnson. So at about 6 p.m., Chad went to Tate's house and he told Tate's dad and stepmother Brenda that he had witnessed him hang himself. They then rushed to the tree where Chad said he witnessed the suicide, and this is when Tate's father, Jimmy, then had to cut his own son down from the tree. Now, according to Chad, he and Tate were outside drinking beers and outside near the truck. Now, he also claimed that he walked to the other side of the truck to throw a beer can away, and when he returned, this is when he saw Tate hang himself. During a second interview with him on July 28th of 1988, he then claimed that he witnessed Tate try and hang himself twice. The first time the rope broke, and the two then returned to Tate's house to retrieve another one. And upon returning to the tree, this is when Chad said that Tate was successful to hang himself by standing on the hood of the car and jumping off. Tate's death was officially ruled as suicide, and this was attributed to all of the personal troubles that he had regarding a breakup between him and his girlfriend the year prior. But, however, on the day that he died, it was reported by friends and family that he did not have any signs of being upset or being depressed. And he also made plans to fill in as a coach at a friend's softball game that evening. Now, at Tate's funeral, apparently there was a woman seen wearing a black veil, and nobody knew who she was. And there was a lot of weirdness happening around this time. There was a lot of talk of things that weren't right. There was a lot of talk of Satan in town. Basically, so we've already really talked about the widespread hysteria when it comes to the Satanic Panic. Well, this is a very strange story. Very strange. Like I said, at his funeral, his aunt noticed a woman dressed in all black, and there was a veil covering her face. Nobody knew her, and the woman left before anybody could talk to her. Now, in the middle of the service, a young man that was sitting in the front row started repeating the word suicide over and over again. Super strange, right? A few days after this, a high school student informed the police about a place that had a cow skull under the tree. And there was a pile of logs and rocks under the tree. This place was about a mile from where Tate hung himself. So one night, there was a police officer that noticed a person standing by Tate's grave. And when he investigated this, the person disappeared. He also noticed that there was tobacco spit on the grave and a burnt cross near it. So there was rumors that Tate was part of a cult that was spreading around town. People believed that he was killed because he couldn't provide the cult with a sacrifice of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed child. Again, very strange as well. So there was a girl that informed police about a vision she had. And according to her vision, a cult gathered at an abandoned house. The girl believed her parents were a part of this cult as well, and that they had hit a boy with their car a few years earlier for sacrifice. Well, the police went to the house, but they discovered that this house had been burned down recently. And the girl was somehow correct because a boy had been killed by a hit and run a few years earlier. So a few days later, there was a boy named Ray. Now, Ray confesses to police that he was a satanic cult member. He also claimed that he was present at the tree when Tate was hanged. After many days after this is when Terrie is found dead inside of Ray's house. Now, Terrie, so this happens 3 years after. She was 27 at the time. She's found dead in her bed on the morning of May 31st of 1991. Now, the first autopsy of Terrie was done by pathologist Dr. Ralph Erdman, and it showed that Terrie died as a result of choking on her own vomit. Now, according to her friend Lisa Barber, Terrie had never believed that her brother committed suicide, but according to her autopsy, she had high levels of a drug called Elavil in her blood. High levels. Now, this is a psychiatric drug. Yeah. So, yeah. Now, the kid Ray we're talking about, his name is Ray Wilkes. So, all of this is just absolutely fucking wild. So in November of 1988, he is arrested for drunkenly crashing into a utility pole. He's 15 at the time. And at his booking, this is when he admits that he is a member of a rumored satanic cult and claiming to witness Tate's death, like I already said. Now, according to Ray's father, he couldn't have witnessed the death of Tate because he was in a juvenile detention center the night of the hanging. After the night of Terrie's death, however, the rumors reignited after Darwin Wilkes, which is the older brother of Ray, attempted suicide by an Elavil overdose, the same drug found in Terrie's blood. Interesting, right? So, man. He attempted to kill himself by swallowing 25 to 30 tablets of Elavil. And he also written a suicide note that claimed that he knew who killed Terrie, and when his brother was questioned, he denied writing that note. Yeah. So, it's also good to know that Terrie's family, they wanted a reinvestigation of the case, and they refused. The county sheriff refused to reopen it. But a new sheriff in the county later reopened these cases. And it's after the cases were reopened, this is when Ray's brother tries to kill himself. So about 3 years after Tate's death, his body is then exhumed. An autopsy revealed that there was a high dose of Elavil in his body. Terrie's body also was re-examined. She also had Elavil in her body, which we already discussed. Now, however, police found that most of the witnesses that were concerned in this case were very unreliable, and there was no evidence that there was ever a satanic cult in town. But till this day, they believe that there's a cult that existed in Childress. Yeah. So, there were other results of robed cult members and animal sacrifices that occurred in this town in the year after all of this. And there's a lot of speculation when it comes to the death of Tate Rowland and Terrie Trosper. And this is what led to the Texas Department of Public Safety to distribute pamphlets to local police department listing 30 ways to determine whether or not a death has been a result of occult ritual abuse. Yeah. So I will also say too that after they exhumed Terrie's body, and now her body was exhumed in late October of 1991. Her second autopsy revealed that there was contusions to her thigh as well as evidence that she was smothered to death. So at that, and she was laying face down, so how would you choke on your own vomit? Right? That, and with Tate's body, so even though his body was too decomposed, so his casket he was buried in wasn't sealed properly. There were, and since they found the high levels of Eleville, the coroner believed that there was about a 70% chance that, and that he was 70% sure that his cause of death was actually homicide. It wasn't a suicide. Because if you're on that high of a level of Eleville, how the fuck are you going to hang yourself? Eleville basically, it's a psychiatric drug, but you're going to be subdued. I don't know. So basically, also what to know too is that this town was like terrified because there was a lot of strangers during this time, like in between the two deaths, where there was a lot of strangers that were reported to attempt to pick up children from the local schools in the fall of 1988, and multiple phone calls received each day by the police department claiming that Tate's murder was affiliated to a satanic cult. So there was a lot of hysteria in this town, and I don't think we will ever really know, or it will ever fully be divulged what really happened to Terrie and Tate, but this is the true story of Terrie and Tate, where we have the scientific evidence to back up the fact that Tate did not kill himself. He was drugged with Eleville, and the same thing happened with Terrie. I believe that Tate was given the medicine. Under what circumstances happened prior, I don't really know, but I think that because he was so subdued with the Eleville, he was more than likely, whoever hoisted him up did it while he was incapacitated. And I don't believe that he was conscious when he died. And then with Terrie, I think she was forced to take the Eleville, and then whoever smothered her and put her face down, or just shoved her face in the pillow while she was unconscious to the point where she was smothered to death. So that, my friends, is the very bizarre case of Tate Rowland and Terrie Trosper. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys tomorrow in another video.